Sweet, sweet. Red. Oh man. Get this up. Fix my headphones. Sweet. All right. Good morning, class. I'm Ronald Geist, tenured professor of Hegelian philosophy here at the Gilgamesh Institute. And today is a weird day. Today I'm live streaming class. I found out the other day that everyone who's taking this class is a bunch of illiterate business majors that don't know how to read, and you guys took my class expecting to get an easy A, I suppose, and then you realize you actually have to read books to pass in this class. So today I'm going to be walking you through reading Rene Descartes paragraph by paragraph, because apparently you guys are too stupid to do it yourself. This is part of an effort to improve like our online classes here at the Gilgamesh Institute, because the higher ups just really want us to be making Kids Bop YouTube videos for you people. You know, I thought out of high school you guys could like read on your own. Apparently I was wrong. I do apologize for missing the first day of class. I did have a horrible hangover that day. Not like any of you actually showed up to class that day. I'm guessing you all also had hangovers. Anyways, we're just going to go over the syllabus anyhow, but as mentioned previously, you guys are in college, so you should know how to read by now, so read the syllabus yourself. As for announcements, you guys do have an essay due next week on our topic today, which is Rene Descartes. Just to be clear, this is a class on modern history of philosophy. So, if this is not your class, get out. Anyhow, yeah, today we're going to be reading Rene Descartes' Meditations 1 and 2. Rene Descartes is the funny, I think, therefore I am guy. You guys should have probably heard of him before. He's rather famous in philosophy and in pop culture, I suppose. People make lots of funny memes, like, for instance, here, let me show you guys. Bam, scene, bam. Where the frick did I put it? Holy fuck. Close that out. Don't mind the background. Yeah, I gathered together some of the best funny Descartes I found. As you can see, I meme, therefore I am. Like, see, with this one, the joke is, like, he's thinking, and so he is, but then, like, the thought bubble bursts, so then, like, he's no longer existing because, yeah. There's this one where it's, like, not thinking, and he's not there, and then he's thinking, and then he is there, and there's, like, Drake pointing the finger and stuff. So, that's pretty funny. I meme, therefore I exist. I funny co. Kind of the same. Well, actually, that's kind of different because he's memeing and therefore he's existing. So that's kind of like a different twist on the joke. Yeah, this one's kind of like the other ones where it's like, you know, he stops thinking and then he dies. This is just him with sunglasses. This is like another joke about him thinking, and yeah, I think you guys are getting, the point here. Yeah, I think you guys got the point, so no need to like go over that further. But yeah, Rene Descartes, he does the "I think, therefore I am" kind of shtick. So that's who we're going to be covering today. To help you guys with your study skills, we're going to give a brief cursory using Wikipedia. Some of your professors will say it's bad academically to cite Wikipedia. I agree, but like you would be lying if you said you don't use Wikipedia. It's kind of like the strat, I suppose. So we'll give a cursory overlook of Rene Descartes, and then we'll jump into his meditations. I'm not providing citations for this because it's Wikipedia. Rene Descartes, 31st of March, 1596 to 1650. So yeah, he lived a long time ago. Like most philosophers, he's just a dead white dude that talked a lot. Not much to know there. He was a French philosopher, scientist, and mathematician, widely considered a seminal figure in the emergence of modern philosophy and science. Mathematics was paramount to his method of inquiry, and he considered the previous separate fields of geometry and algebra into analytic geometry. We're not going to be covering his mathematics because that's for your, quantitative literacy, because you guys are, again, business majors that can't survive in calculus. But if you guys take some math courses, you'll probably learn about Descartes there in that context. We won't be doing that today. We're only going to be covering his meditations, which is like this stuff. We're not going to be reading from this book because this is copyright. We're going to be reading from Gutenberg. Also, we're not going to be reading Discourse on Method. That's the actual book where he says, I think, therefore I am. We're going to be reading the Meditations instead, where he provides another argument around the same lines. Anyways, back to this. Descartes spends much of his waking life in the Dutch Republic, initially serving the Dutch state's army, and later becoming a central intellectual of the Dutch Golden Age. Although he served the Protestant state and was later considered a deist by critics, Descartes was a Roman Catholic. As you'll learn, Descartes was very fond of Christianity and religion, a central theme in Meditations. I believe he provides like 3 separate arguments for God throughout his 5 meditations. So we might get into that. I don't know if you guys can survive reading that much philosophy. We'll see how far we can get today. I'm guessing we're only going to be covering the first 2 meditations, and those are the best ones anyways, so whatever. Many elements of Descartes' philosophy have precedence in late Aristotelianism, the revived Stoicism of the 16th century, or in earlier philosophers like Augustine in his natural philosophy. He differed from the schools on 2 major points. First, he rejected okay, I'm getting bored. We'll actually jump into his actual his actual book. Let's see over here. 6 meditations. Bam. Did I say 5 meditations earlier? I meant to say 6, as is mentioned over here. Yeah, I guess I should give an overview of what we're going to be covering today. First, we're going to read Meditations 1 and 2. I'll be going over each paragraph by paragraph, telling you what they mean, telling you what's stupid in his philosophy, what actually makes sense. After we do that, we'll probably jump over to ChatGPT, your guys' favorite study aid, and we're going to be quizzing ourselves to see how much we know about Descartes after reading 2 of his meditations. I'm not too ambitious with what we can get done today, so that's probably about all we're going to be doing. Anyways, as for the actual text, let's see who this is by. 6 metaphysical meditations wherein it is proved that there is a God and that man's mind is really distinct from his body. Written originally in Latin by René Descartes. I don't know why it's punctuated like that. Typically how I've heard it pronounced is René Descartes. The S is silent. Here are added the objections made against the Meditations by Thomas Hobbes. Oh, Thomas Hobbes is here. Cool. Yeah, well, this is the full title. Most people refer to it as Descartes' Meditations, so no need for this whole title. Even in your citations, you probably don't need to put in wherein it is proved that there is a God and that the mind is really distinct from his body. That's kind of like excessive. Let's see. So today we're reading this translation by William. Again, this can be found on Project Gutenberg. They provide lots of free books, so that's what we'll be using throughout the rest of the semester. Yeah. Anyways, this whole title is about, like, again, he's going to be proving God's existence in this book. He does so miraculously and perfectly, and it's a shame that not everyone's a Christian after reading that. He's also going to talk about mind-body dualism and establish how, like, mental substance is different from, like, actual matter substance, such as, like, I use substance kind of imprecisely there. Both mental and material are both substance under Descartes' view. It's just the essence of mind is thought, and the essence of body is extension, which he'll get into later. That's not going to make sense yet, because you guys are all stupid. Anyhow, let's jump straight into this. We're going to be skipping that. Table of contents, meditation 1, of things doubtful. This is probably the best meditations. This translation not have. That sucks. Whatever. Anyhow, meditation 1, of things doubtful. In this meditation, he's basically going to be establishing what his objective is with these meditations and why he's doing it for the most part. Meditation 2 is where he actually gets more into the substance. However, it's pretty important we run through the first meditation first. Let's see how many pages this is. This is only like 2 pages, so that'll be quick. Meditation 2 is a bit longer, but still pretty short. Meditation 3 is where the actual meat starts coming in. But let's start up with meditation 1, of things doubtful. He's going to say a lot of things are doubtful. Some years past, I perceived how many falsities I admitted as truths in my younger years, and how dubious those things were, which I raised from thence. And therefore, I thought it requisite, if I had a design, to establish anything that should prove firm and permanent in sciences, that once in my life I should clearly cast aside all my former opinions and begin anew from some first principles. But this seemed a great task, and still expected that maturity of years than which none could be more apt to receive, learning, upon which account I waited so long that at last I should deservedly be blamed had I spent the time in deliberation which remained only for action. So as you'll notice immediately, this translation sounds like the King James Version of the Bible. That's like a horrible way to read a book, so it's rather complex, but we'll break this whole paragraph down. Basically what he's saying right here is that, like, my current opinions are stupid. I need to fact check them. That's the main point here. He's basically saying that, like, he's basically saying that, like, okay, I've heard all these opinions by, like, Aristotelian philosophers or people in, like, the scholastic tradition. And he's like, I need to, like, actually fact check what it is I'm saying. So I'm going to set aside everything I believe. I'm going to doubt everything. And then I'm going to build on top of that thing. Think about it this way. Imagine, like, your car is, like, busted. You don't know what's wrong with it. I think a bird just hit my window. Anyways, your car is, like, busted. Also, by the way, my dogs are going to be barking throughout this recording. So, deal with it. Anyways, I'm losing my place here. Imagine your car is busted. There's, like, something wrong with it, and you don't know what's wrong with it. So, like, instead of, like, finding that one particular part that's wrong with your car and repairing that, you're like, I'm just going to start from the bottom and check every single part and see which one is busted. I'm basically going to be building a brand new car. That's what he's talking about by, like, operating from first, getting rid of former opinions and operating on first principles. He's basically going to set aside all that is doubtful and only, where did I go? And only deal with what is certain. He'll expand on that in the second paragraph. This day, therefore, I conveniently released my mind from all cares. I poured to myself a time quiet and free from all business. I retired myself alone, and now at length will I freely and seriously apply myself to the general overthrow of all my former opinions. Here he's saying that, like, okay, I finally have time to undergo this operation where I throw away all of my former opinions and build from the bottom up, ground up. Okay, to the accomplishment of which it will not be necessary for me to prove them all false. For that, this is an important point, note that. For that perhaps I shall never achieve, but because my reason persuades me that I must withdraw my assent no less from those opinions which seem not so very certain and undoubtful, that I should from those that are apparently false, it will be sufficient if I reject all those wherein I find my occasion of doubt. So basically he's saying for this operation where he's going to overthrow his former opinions, he's not actually going to go through each one and check them individually. He's just going to throw all of his opinions out and just start from the beginning. He's basically saying, like, I don't have the burden of proof here to show that everything's wrong. all of my opinions are wrong. He's just going to assume they're wrong just based on the fact that they're uncertain. He has a very, very strict definition of what he considers to be like knowledge or something along those lines, where he's just going to be saying, unless it's certain, it's not knowledge to some extent. He'll expand on that more in, I believe, the third meditation. Anyways, oh, hey, what's up, doggo? That's Rick. He'll be reading with us. Next paragraph. I skipped ahead, motherfucker. Okay. Anyways, neither to the effect that it is necessary that all should be run over, particularly, which would be an endless trouble, but because the foundation being once undermined, the foundation, that's important, whenever is built thereon will of its own accord come to the ground, I shall therefore immediately assault the very principle on which whatever I believe was grounded. This is also important. So what he's saying here is foundation being undermined. So instead of like, he's not even, whenever he's going to doubt everything, he's going to strike at the core of where his beliefs stem from. So like, say, maybe I couldn't like argue with you that my table doesn't exist, and then I would also have to argue that that lantern doesn't exist, or that my dog doesn't exist, or that this, and that doesn't exist. Instead, he's going to be attacking like some foundational faculties of our mind and how accurate they are. He's going to cast like an epistemological doubt on things. So instead of attacking each individual object or substance, he's going to be saying maybe our faculties for understanding these substances are wrong, the very principles. And that should cause grounds to undermine all of the beliefs that are built upon those foundations. You'll see what I mean when we get over here. Whatever I've hetero admitted as most true that I received either from or by my senses, but there I have often found to deceive me, and it's prudent never certain. 'Tis prudence never certainty to trust those that I have, though but once deceived us. So basically here he's saying like, you know, if your girl has cheated on you at least once, you should probably never trust them again. That kind of makes sense to me, where he's basically like, even if my senses have like made me doubt something once, then maybe I shouldn't trust them so much. It might be a bit extreme, but we'll see the argument he makes over here. Doubt, but though sometimes the senses deceive us, being exercised about remote or small objects, yet there are many other things of which we cannot doubt, though we know them only by the senses. At present I am in this place, that I'm sitting by a fire, that I have a winter gown on me, that I feel this paper with my hands. But how can it be denied that these hands or this body is mine? That's a great question. Unless I should compare myself to those madmen whose brains are disturbed by such a disorderly melancholic vapor, that makes them continually profess themselves to be kings, though they are very poor, or fancy themselves clothed in purple robes, though they are naked, or that their hands are made of clay as bottles of glass, etc. But these are madmen. I should be as mad as they in following their example by fancying the things as they do. I should not be highlighting this whole thing. You should only highlight like small portions at a time. Besides the point, what he's saying in this paragraph is basically like, certainly there's some things I'd be insane to doubt, like sitting in my chair. Like, I know for a fact that there's a table right here. I know that there's a camera right there. I know that I have these hands and stuff. Like, surely I'd be like a crazy person to doubt that I have these things that I certainly have for sure. Like, surely I can know this stuff for certain. As he's going to say over here, maybe that's not the case. Maybe it's not akin to being a madman that professes himself being a king even though he's poor. It sounds like Rick has a comment on the chat on this paragraph as well. Okay, he's calmed down. Anyhow, one solution. This truly would seem very clear to those that never sleep and suffer the same things, and sometimes more unlikely in their repose than those madmen do whilst they are awake. For how often am I persuaded in a dream of these unusual occurrences, that I am in this place, that I have a gown on me, that I am sitting by a fire, though all the while I am lying naked between the sheets. I like imagining Descartes naked. That's a great image to have in my head. Anyways, what he's saying in that paragraph is that maybe you don't have to be mad to doubt those things. It happens quite often when we dream, after all. Like, I can dream that I'll be awake, living my life, touching things normally, having a great day for the most part. You know, like, I'm not mad because I dream, but that does cast doubt on these perceptions I have right now of, like, touching this keyboard or, like, doing this stream. Maybe this is all a dream right now. Anyhow, next paragraph. But now I'm certain that I am awake, and I look upon this paper. Neither is this head which I shake asleep. I knowingly and willingly stretch out this hand, and I'm sensible that things so distinct could not happen to one that sleeps, as if I cannot remember myself to have been deceived formerly in my sleep by the like thoughts, which I will consider more attentively, and I am so far convinced of the difficulty of distinguishing sleep from waking that I am amazed, and this very amazement also persuades me that I am asleep. So basically right here, he's saying that, like, okay, you might doubt things because you sleep, but surely you can distinguish between when you're asleep and awake. Like, when you're awake, things feel a lot more distinct and real than you're asleep. And Descartes kind of agrees there. He's saying, like, yeah, it does seem like things are a lot more distinct when you're awake. However, sometimes it can be honestly hard to tell when you're in a dream. And just the fact that it can be hard to tell sometimes, that, you know, gives us reason to doubt our sense perceptions. Doubt. Wherefore... okay. Doubt. Wherefore, let us suppose ourselves asleep, and these things are not true. Viz., that we open our eyes, move our heads, stretch our hands, and perhaps that we have no such things as hands or a body. Yet we must confess that what we see in a dream, as it were, a painted picture, which cannot be devised, but after the likeness of some real things, and therefore these generals at least, viz., eyes, hands, heads, eyes, head, hands, and the whole body are really existent and not imaginary. For painters themselves, even then when they design mermaids and satyrs as the most unusual shapes, do not give them naturals altogether new, but only add the diverse parts of different animals together. And if by chance they invent anything so new that nothing was ever seen like it, for that 'tis wholly fictitious and false, yet the colors at least of which they make it must be true. Colors. So upon the same account, though these general things as eyes, heads, hands, etc. may be imaginary, yet nevertheless we must of necessity confess the more simple and universal things to be true, of which, as of true of color, these images of things, whether true or false, which are in the minds, are made, such as are the nature of a body in general, and its extension, also the shape of things extended, with the quantity or bigness of them. Yeah, he likes to talk a lot during stream, as you can tell. Anyhow, continuing further, with the quantity of bigness of them, their number also, and places wherein they are, the time in which they continue, and the like, and therefore thence we make no bad conclusions that physic, both natural and medicinal, astronomy, all of the other sciences, which depend on the consideration of compound things, are doubtful, but that arithmetic, geometry, and the like, which treat only of the most simple and general things, not regarded whether they really are or not, have in them something certain and undoubted. For whether I sleep or awake, 2 and 3 add make 5. A square has no more sides than 4, and neither seems it possible as it can be doubted. Okay, that was a lot. As you can probably tell, Descartes really loves having, like, very long paragraphs. Let me check something. Okay, I am still streaming the actual book, so I don't sound like a complete madman. Anyways, that was a very long paragraph. Descartes likes writing very long paragraphs. He doesn't know how to break up ideas. However, I can kind of go into some detail on what he's saying here. Remember, in the prior paragraph, he's basically saying that I'm pretty sure I can cast doubt on my senses based on dreams, even though it's not 100%. However, a critic might say that, like, even though you can cast doubt on... Anyways, even though the critic may say that, so it's established that sleeping is cause for doubt on your senses, just based on what he said so far. So a critic might say, well, okay, maybe I can doubt everything I sense to be accurate because I could be or not be dreaming. Surely I can't doubt the very foundations of like where those dreams are coming from. Such as like I might be able to doubt that I'm really sitting at my table, but I can't doubt the idea of like the color of the table or the idea of shape or something along those lines. Surely not like something that crazy. Descartes says basically you can. In the same way that like a painter can distort things or something like that, whatever. He said something I can't quite recall. Anyways, in the second half of the paragraph, he also extends that to things like geometry and mathematics. It's like surely 2 + 2 always equals 4. You know, surely that is certain. Even in a dream, it still adds together. Like that's like an analytic truth, even though Descartes doesn't really use analytic in those terms. Or like tautology, surely like something like that must be true. Even if like we can doubt our senses, surely something like mathematics is true, or at least like the source of like where our senses come from. Surely they're like copying something in reality or mixing them to some extent. So surely we can be certain about those things. Down here he's going to say, yeah, even that doesn't cut it. Let's jump into this solution. But all this while there is rooted in my mind a certain old opinion of being of an omnipotent God by whom I am created in the state I am in. How I know, but he had caused that there should be no earth, no heaven, no body, no figure, no magnitude, no place, and yet all these things should seem to be as no now they are. That was a horrible way to word that. And as I very often judge others to err about those things which they think they thoroughly understand, so why may I be deceived whenever I add 2 and 3 or count the sides of a square or whatever other matter can be thought of? We're going to push ahead right here. Doubt, but perhaps God wills not that I should be deceived, for he said to be infinitely good. Sweet. So, and those two, I guess you can consider this maybe a paragraph. Here he's saying like, what if I could be wrong about these things? Like, what if like I'm like a madman that like doesn't know that 2 + 2, wait, did he say madman? As I often judge others to err about those things which they think they thoroughly understand, why am I not also deceived whenever I add 2 and 3? So basically he's saying like some people mess up about like adding mathematics together, and they still seem to be certain of what they understand. Perhaps I'm wrong as well. Or no heaven, and how? And at that first section, he's basically saying, what if the God who created me, what if he caused there to be no earth, no heaven, no body, no figure, no magnitude, no place, and yet all those things should seem to me to be? So basically saying, what if God is deceiving me in some way possible? Perhaps there is no such thing as like an earth mountain magnitude such as that. If there's a God that's that powerful, omnipotent God, I said omniscient originally, that's not true, that's like all-knowing. Omnipotent means all-powerful. What if there's an all-powerful God that makes me think those things are true even though they're not necessarily there? It doesn't even necessarily have to be a necessity, just like they're not there in general. And in here he says basically, for that first point, some people say, I can know this for a fact that because God would not deceive me because he's infinitely good. So basically they're saying, if there is a good God, then he would not deceive you. Therefore, you can know that you're not being deceived right now. Or sorry, I missed a premise there. Premise 2 would be like, there is a good God. Therefore, you can know you're not being deceived on matters such as, is there an earth, is there magnitude, is there extension, figure, place, something along those lines. Over here, he's going to cast doubt on even on that. He's going to say it in very kind terms, but he's going to even cast doubt on that as well. It's a lot. Yet, if it were repugnant to his goodness to create me so that I should be always deceived, it seems also unagreeable to his goodness to permit me to be deceived at any time, which last no one will affirm. some there are truly who had rather deny God's omnipotence and then believe all things uncertain, but there at present we may not contradict, and we will suppose all this of God to be false. Yet whether they will suppose me to become what I am by fate, by chance, by a continued chain of causes, or any other way, because to error is an imperfection, and how much the less power they will assign to the offer of my being, so much the probability I am a perfect to always be deceived. So basically he's saying like, okay, maybe God is good, but everyone would also have to agree that sometimes I get deceived, sometimes I'm wrong. So that means God permits it, at least in some cases. What if he extends it to other cases as well? Again, Descartes is a Christian here, but still he's like causing doubt on it. However, as we'll see later in some of his later meditations, he will provide an explanation for why this happens and why it doesn't contradict God's goodness. We'll skip along here. To which arguments I know not what to answer, but am forced to confess that there is nothing of all those things which I formerly received as truths. Wherefore at present I may not doubt, and this doubt shall not be grounded on inadvertency or levity, but upon strong and premeditated reasons. And therefore I must hetero, if I design to discover any truths, withdraw my assent from them no less than from apparent falsehoods. But 'tis not sufficient to think only transcendentally on those things. I must take care to remember them for delay my old opinions return upon me, and much against my will almost possesses my beliefs tied to them, as if it were by a continued use and right of familiarity. Neither shall I never cease to assent and trust in them, whilst I suppose them as in themselves they really are, that is to say, something doubtful, as I have now proved, yet notwithstanding highly probable, which it must be more reasonable to believe than disbelieve. Wherefore I conceive I should not do amiss, if with my mind bent clearly to the contrary side, I should deceive myself and suppose them for a while altogether false and imaginary, till at length of the ways of prejudice being a scale, customary manner, more drama, judgment for the true kind of say, I hate reading Descartes. To which end I will suppose not infinitely perfect God, the foundation of truth, but some evil spirit, which this is the part I wanted to get to. This is what we were skipping to. Perfect. Basically, what he's saying throughout all of that is that, like, okay, I get some things wrong all the time. Maybe it's like I shouldn't think too much into that. Maybe it's like God allows it, but maybe it's not too bad. Now he's getting to the real meat and potatoes here. He's saying, what if God is the evil one? What if God is like some evil demon? I think he doesn't say God specifically here, but let's see. To which end I will suppose not an infinitely perfect God, the foundation of truth, but that some evil spirit, which is very powerful and crafty, has used all of its endeavors to deceive me. I will conceive the heavens, air, earth, colors, figures, sounds, and all outward things are nothing else but delusions of dreams, by which he has laid snares to catch my easy belief. I will consider myself as not having hands, eyes, flesh, blood, or he has laid snares to catch my easy beliefs. Senses. That I falsely think that I have all these. I will continue firmly in this meditation, and though it lies not in my power to discover any truth, this is my power not to assent to falsities, and with a strong, that did not translate proper, take care that the mighty deceiver, though never so powerful or cunning, poses not anything on my beliefs. But this is a laborious intention, and a certain sloth reduces me to the usual course of life, and like a prisoner who is in sleep, perhaps enjoyed imaginary liberty, and when he begins to suppose that he is asleep, is afraid to waken, but while to be deceived by pleasant delusions, though I willingly fall into my opinions, and am afraid to be roused, lest at toilsome waking, succeeding a pleasant rest, I may hereafter live not in the light, but in the confused darkness of the doubts now raised. Okay. That was the important part right here. Being deceived by a evil demon or God or something along those lines. I heard one of my professors phrase it this way. There's like 2 levels of doubt in Descartes. The first level is what we were talking about with the dreams. What if I'm dreaming all of this up? if I'm dreaming, then I can probably doubt my senses. And then in that rebuttal earlier, it said, well, even though I'm dreaming, I can still know that there's like some general principles that stand, such as extension, magnitude, places existing, colors existing, or even mathematical truths such as 2 plus 2 equals 4, or that all the interior angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees. Stuff like that can still exist even though you're dreaming, and you can be pretty sure that they exist to some extent. And then that's where the second layer of doubt comes in. He says that, well, what if there's an evil demon deceiving your faculties to where it's like you'll be adding 2 plus 2 equals 4. However, that's just the demon messing with you. What if the demon was messing with your mind to the extent that like every time you added 2 plus 2, you were to receive 5 as your solution and answer, and you'd be perfectly, you would feel completely certain and believing that nevertheless. That's kind of the true layer of doubt he's casting here. And remember at the start, he explained that his whole mission with this project is to say, is there anything I can know for certain under the most extreme forms of doubt? He said his opinions right now, he knows not if they are true or false because they're kind of built on assumptions done by scholastic philosophers in the past. And this point in history, Aristotelian thought kind of took over universities, and everyone kind of adopted this line of thought. Yeah, doubt was starting to get cast on it by people like Copernicus and Galileo, however. So Rene Descartes kind of comes about during this time where doubt is being cast upon it. So he's like, well, what do I know to be true anymore? I guess I'll have to undergo this massive mission of doubting everything. As he's saying here, he can undercut some of those like foundational beliefs by saying that like I can doubt my sense perceptions because I can doubt my sense perceptions because I could be dreaming. I can doubt those more general senses because there could be an evil demon deceiving me. That's the whole thing you should get from this first meditation if you're not being stupid. As you can see, this is very hard to read. This translation is tough. It sounds like you're reading the King James Version of the Bible, the only version, by the way. So this one can be a bit rough. However, I think we made through it in decent time. What have we been going at this for how long? 40 minutes. Okay, well, we need to speed this along a bit because that was only 2 pages.
Are on YouTube. Enjoy the latest
I
releases.
swear to God.
Get
Skip ad. Oh, by the way, all this music comes from CBGP Music, so check that out, I suppose. Anyhow, meditation 2. Of the nature of man's mind, where's your apostrophe? Okay, man's mind, and that 'tis easier proved to be than our body. This is a very great meditation. This is where we're going to get the I think therefore I am thing, and I'm going to expound on what that actually means because lots of people like don't understand the full context of it. Main point is meditation 1 was a lot of the context you needed for that, but he's going to go through it here where he provides an argument for something that he can be certain of. And it's also important to realize here, he's also going to make a distinction between mind and body. This is where Descartes' famous mind-body dualism comes into play, or where he sows the seeds of it. I think he also brings it up in some further meditations. I need a white monster, dude. Anyhow, by yesterday's meditation, I am cast into so great doubts that I shall never forget them, and yet I know not how to answer them, but being plunged on a sudden into a deep gulf, I am so amazed that I can never touch the bottoms nor swim at the top. Basically, he's saying I'm in a rut right now. I've doubted everything to this extent, so life kind of sucks now. Nevertheless, I will endeavor once more and try the way I set on yesterday by removing from me whatever. I should have been full zoom this whole time. Whatever. Nevertheless, I will endeavor once more and try the way I set on yesterday by removing me whatever is the least doubtful, as if I had certainly discovered to be altogether false, and I will proceed till I find out some certainty, or if nothing else, yet at least this certainty, that there is nothing sure. So basically here he's like, at least at this point I've understood that there's nothing sure. But is there something I could find sure? I better look into that. Archimedes, I think I pronounced that right. Wait, let's see. Archimedes. Are you gonna give me pronunciation, Wikipedia? No. Okay, cool. We'll just get back to it then. Archimedes required but a point which was firm and unmovable, that he might move the whole earth. So in the perfect undertaking great things may be expected, if I can discover but at least the thing that is true and indisputable. Basically saying I should at least find one truth, and maybe I can do a lot of that. I can stretch it a while. He sounds like a politician in that extent. Wherefore I suppose things I see are false, and believe that nothing of those things are really existent, which my deceitful memory represents to me. 'Tis evident that I have no senses, that a body, figure, extension, motion, place, and are mere fictions. That thing, therefore, is that is true. Perhaps only this, that there is nothing certain. He's basically saying the same thing again. It's pretty redundant there, but just on a different topic. How I know that there is nothing distinct from all those things which I have now reckoned of, doubts and solutions, cool, of which I have no reason to doubt. Is there no God, or whatever other name I may call him, who has put these thoughts into me? Yet why should I think this, when I myself perhaps am the author of them? Upon which account, therefore, must not I be something? 'Tis but just now that I deny that all I had, any senses or any body, while I hold am I so tied to a body and senses that I cannot exist without them. But I have persuaded myself that there is nothing in the world, no heavens, no earth, no souls, no bodies, and that why not that I myself am not? Surely, if I could persuade myself of anything, I was. Okay, this is a pretty cool paragraph, because basically right here he's saying, like, okay, I've doubted that my body exists and everything like that. Maybe I could even doubt that, like, there's a demon deceiving me and it all comes from myself. However, if I can doubt my body, does that mean that I doubt that I exist? And this is where he sows the seed of his distinction between the mind and the body. He's going to go on to craft an argument here where he says, because I can doubt my body, I don't want to spoil it. We'll just go straight to it. But there is I, know not what sort of deceiver, very powerful and very crafty, who always tries to deceive me without doubt. Therefore I am. No way, he said like half of the line, not the full thing. If he can deceive me, and let him deceive me as much as he can, yet he can never make me not be, whilst I think that I am. Wherefore I may lay down as a principle that whenever the sentence I am, I exist, is spoken of or thought of me, 'tis necessarily true. It's starting to heat up here, but we'll skip ahead. But I do not yet fully understand who I am now. Okay, no, wait, never mind. Yeah, we'll get to this in a bit. Here is the crux. This is where he does the funny line. He doesn't do it exactly, because he does that in his discourse on method. This is the meditations. He doesn't say it exactly. He doesn't phrase it in the I think therefore I am cogito ergo sum funny mode. But he gets the main point across. He says, even if there is a deceiver, I can know that I am existing. Because for me to think, I have to exist. I think, therefore I am. He doesn't phrase it in those words, but this is necessarily true. And necessary truths are a lot stronger than contingent truths. The fact that he's being doubted means that there has to be something being doubted. There's something that exists at the very least, and that thing is him. That's something he can know for certain, is that he exists. Not yet fully understand who I am now that I necessarily exist, and I must therefore take care lest I foolishly mistake some other thing for myself, and that by means be deceived in that thought, which I define as the most certain and evident of all. Basically here he's like, I've established that I am, that I exist. The fact that there's something being deceived proves that I exist. Now he's going to say, well, what can we say about this I? What is this thing like? What am I? That's what he's going to be getting to in these next paragraphs. Wherefore, I will again recollect what I believe myself to be hetero for, before I had set upon these meditations, from which notion I will withdraw whatever may be disproved by the forementioned reasons that in the end that only way may remain, which is true and indisputable. Could you speak in plain English, Descartes? What therefore have I hetero found thought myself a man? But what is a man? Shall I answer a rational animal? By no means, because afterwards it may be asked what an animal is and what rational is, and so from one question I may fall into greater difficulties. Neither at present have I so much time as to spend it about in the niceties. So basically saying like in his day, people will say like, oh, a person's like a human. What he is a rational animal. He can remember that even though he's doubting, he has some recollection of his past at least. Even if everything is like uncertain, he thinks like, I remember people describing me as a rational animal, but I can't say that for certain because, well, because then I'll have to ask what is rational, what's an animal. That's all leads into doubt. So maybe there's something more foundational I can say. What there have I hetero thought myself. Okay, that's what we just read. But I shall there consider what hetero for represented itself to my thoughts freely and naturally whenever I set myself to understand what I myself was. And the first thing I representing is self is that I have face, hands, and arms, and this whole frame of parts which is seen in my body, which I call my body. In reference to me was that I nourished could walk and had sense could think, which functions I attribute to my soul, yet what this soul of mine was I did not fully conceive, or else supposed it a small thing like wind or fire or air infused through my stronger parts. As to my body, I doubt it. Oh my god. Basically here he's just like, ugh, dude, I'm too tired. I'm going to take a break from the stream. I'll come back. I kind of want to do it again. Do it better. Come better prepped. Because clearly I do need a bit more prep time.